with another very popular singer-songwriter by the name of Ehud Banai, and earlier it's outside. Okay, so take a look at this guy, Morris. This is Shuli Ram.
He's typical.
He's
Is that the guy from Ushpizin?
Ushpizin, yeah. He's a singer-songwriter, and he's taking a dive. It's hopefully appropriate. Menachamech, your consoler, or in Shabbat Nacham.
Not any. And has to run under the water.
Here's the refrain. One good point, and then another good point. And just in a bit, there won't be any more evil. You look at this place, and he's not there. You focus on the refrain of the song. נקודה טובה, ועוד נקודה טובה, ועוד מעט ואין רשע. התבוננת על מקומו ואיננו. Just a little bit and there's no more evil. You look at his place and he's no longer there. This is a refrain of a popular Israel song. General Israel, not just religious. This is a popular Israeli song played on all the radio stations. Shuli Ram. This is an actor from Ushpizin.
Is everybody getting the Hebrew and it's just me who doesn't get it?
No.
This is frightening.
Oh, this?
Yeah, and that. I mean,
No, we're going to take it slow. So, Nekuda Tova, Nekuda Tova. One good point to another good point. The od me'at, and just a little bit, there's no rasha, there's no evil person. Hitponant al mekomo ve'inenu. This is the way Rabbi Nachman's Torah, this lesson, makes its way into popular Israeli culture and impacts the culture, the psyche of the social psyche of our society in Israel. By music, that's the way we transmit ideas in the popular culture, one of the ways. And here's a Torah of Rabbi Nachman in the 17th century, late 17th, early 18th century. It's still beating today. It's making its way, and as I said in one of our earlier classes, the movement of connection to Hasidut is growing more and more. We spoke about a new spirituality that's existing in Israel. A lot of it's based on a Hasidut, a Hasidic approach, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And Rabbi Nachman is really up there in terms of attracting people. His message is very uplifting, and we're going to look at one of his messages now. As always, feel free to ask questions and things, but a little bit of background about Hasidut. What do we know already about Hasidut? And don't tell me my father's joke.
So you're going to feed him too?
You got it. There you go. What do you call those guys with the beards and the things? I see them too, but what do you call them? Yeah, that one, you got it. Okay.
Joyousness.
Okay, joyous, just regular joyousness, like a, Joe Palermo festival?
Yeah, inspirational joy, yeah.
Okay, inspiration, inspired by connection to Hashem, joy, simcha, right? Anyone know one Breslov tune that really comes over a lot, to sung a lot? Mitzvah Gedolah? Anyone know? Liot b'simcha tamid. It's a big mitzvah to be always happy. Right? You've heard that song? Mitzvah Gedolah liot b'simcha. Anyone familiar with it?
No.
Of course.
No?
But
Okay.
I'm like
Rabbi
boy in
Nacham,
school.
you know Rabbi Nacham from Oman? That's the one.
Nachman, man.
Rabbi
that?
Nacham. Yes, I know that.
No
that one.
message, but it's okay.
But I heard it was taken from them, made into a popular
Oh, yeah?
general song. Yeah. It actually comes from outside.
Perhaps in the beginning they weren't as mezazek with each detail of Islam, but more spiritual.
They were looked for the spiritual side of the mitzvot, and it's a reaction to a very elitist movement that existed in the Ashkenazi world in the 17th century, 18th century, where this was a very intellectual movement that existed, and the only way you can raise up in society is through study of Torah and deep study of Torah. And the Baal Shem Tov said, we need something else for everyone. And what he did was he popularized Kabbalah. He made it so that everyone could be connected to, and he said, the ideal is not Torah learning. Torah learning is important, but that's not the ideal. The ideal is tefillah. Now, if we think, if the ideal is tefillah, it's so much more accessible than learning Gemara, for example, right? Because everyone can pray, everyone can turn to Hashem. Learning Gemara is a skill. It takes a lot of skill. It's not so easy, but everyone can pray. And he said, if you dance a lot and you sing a lot, and that's how you connect to Hashem. And he gave common folk. It was really a revolution in Europe that brought a new spirit into Judaism, a new spirit of connection to Hashem. If beforehand we're in the Rambam's neo-Aristotelian prime mover of God, he's very transcendent and very aloof and very, he even hard to imagine how you can pray to such a God that's very transcendent, very up there in the heavens. The Baal Shem Tov's conception of Hashem is one that's very immanent, very down to earth, very with us. He's dancing with us, he's singing with us, and this is a Kabbalistic view of Hashem, which is very present in every action that we do. Is that every action has effects in many different worlds. It's a Kabbalistic view. The Baal Shem Tov took this Kabbalistic view of the immanent God and made it for everyone, and opened it up for everyone by making tefillah the standard. And Torah study is not the only way to connect to God. Tefillah. An example of a Hasidic story, you've all heard it, about there was a person going, I think I told it here, the person who was going to, we have a scene of one of the Hasidic families. We're learning, yes. So if I say anything more, Emily, please. Please.
I sit on a comfortable chair.
Please. So what Hasidut did was brought the transcendent, aloof God down to earth, available, accessible to people. That's about Shem Tov's great revolution in Judaism. A revolution, of course, and he didn't do it as fighting and that, but there was a lot of animosity, a lot of people who were against Hasidut movement. Of course, any change in a society, especially in a conservative, small c conservative religious society, is going to bring back antagonism. And in fact, it got so bad sometimes that people were put in jail, or they were there was libel spread about certain Hasidic leaders to the government, and they were put in jail. Okay, we know that the Davmor, the Lubavitch, the Rav Shnei Zalman Miladi, who was a student of the Baal Shem Tov, was put in jail. Was jailed by the Mitnagdim. Mitnagdim, those who go neged, those who go against. So the Hasidut, there were this new spirit of Torah the imminent, close by God, the God down to earth God. When it came to it had a lot of expression of it, and people would do sometimes very strange things, and they would say about the Hasidim that they would do very unusual things like do somersaults and do all different types of things, a way of the spirit moving them. Right? The Din focused on these maybe fringe elements of Hasidut at the time, but people were really taken by the spirit of Hashem, and some behaved in ways that are fringe, but most of the Hasidim did not.
Did they go against halakha?
The Hasidim, the Admorim who founded the Hasidic movements were very much involved in halakha. Now, Rav Shimon Miladi writes the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is called Shulchan Aruch Harav. He was a great Talmid Chacham, as the Baal Shem Tov, as all the many of the Hasidic Admorim. The Admor is Rashi Tevot Adonenu, Morenu, Rabbi. That's how my master, our teacher, and our Rav. So the Admorim were tremendous Talmid Chacham, Talmidei Chachamim. Monique?
It reminds me, and I think it answers your question, every time we talk about the dancing, I think of David dancing with the Torah. Right, the Aron?
When the Aron.
Right, and he's dancing in the street with all the common people, as his wife Michal does not like, disapproves of, but it was not frowned upon. It was something that was like you said, it was a way to bring God in, and I think that's so important today as we face our newest challenge with the kids being so removed. Everything has to be in front of you, tangible, in your face. They don't believe in things that are out there, transcendent, abstract. So this is a very nice way. I don't know how you would bring it in and even start that ball rolling, but I think it's a great response to the kids' removal from this spirituality.
Well, first of all, in our community, Baruch Hashem, our great predecessor rabbis of, let's say, not too long ago, those who started the Young Shadow Theon and the seminars, and they're bringing kind of more experiential element to Torah observance that really is now going on for, when I was a kid, I went to seminars, so it must have been much way before that, so 40 years, something like that. I don't know who started the idea of seminars.
I know where it was. I know exactly where it was.
Okay,
Because in the Ashkenazic world, there was this thing that YU had sponsored. It was called Torah Leadership Seminars. It was really the precursor to what's like NTSY. It was really for public school children, and it was a week-long seminar, Torah Leadership Seminar. It was like the beginning of the Kiruv movement, where Orthodoxy was reaching out. And it was a week-long seminar, very experiential, but some of the great, like Rabbi Riskin, Rabbi Lamb, Rabbi Abner Weiss, some of the great
the rabbi was also very involved.
So he was a little younger than them, so he and I met at one of those, but it was public school kids, right? And at a certain point, there were a few Syrians, like my husband, Sammy Sutton, people who were at YU got involved in these Torah leadership seminars, and someone said, wait, why don't we have them in the Syrian community? And that's what it was. The early seminars were Ma'ariv Anak. So I remember very well when that happened.
This is a vast, sharp change, and maybe along the lines of what experiencing Hashem, living it and dancing it and singing it, and really there's been an explosion of Jewish music in the last 20, 30, 40 years. With Rav Shlomo Carlebach and it's just living in a period where Judaism is being so creative, and part of the way that Judaism is being creative is through music, through dancing, through experience. So yes, if a Hasidut was that for that time, in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. Now we started reading Rav Shagar's works, and he speaks about another type of renaissance of Hasidut in certain movements, certain young people in Israel, and it's really Rabbi Nachman's Torah is one of the are some of the ways that people are being very connected to Hasidus and experiential Judaism. I went to a lot of weekends where we just learned Rabbi Nachman. And so, who's Rabbi Nachman?
He did it in the restaurants.
What's that?
He handed out in the restaurants.
There's a lot of people that his books, his thing, a lot of people that follow it, and there are different strands of people who follow. There's the old timers, Rabbi Nachman, Breslov Hasidim. There's the non-Nach people who are the ones you see dancing all around and really dancing with complete abandon. Sometimes if you go to Kikar Zion, I'm sure you can find on YouTube examples of these Nachman people, and they just with complete being infused with Hashem, and dancing and getting other people to join them. I'm not there. I don't know if I'm not there yet or not there at all, but I'm not at that kind. But there's also people who study Rabbi Nachman's works academically, intellectual people studying in universities. My first exposure to it was in the college course I was taking about Rabbi Nachman, and the person who was teaching it to me was a professor of philosophy at university, and he has a Malkiel. And so, he's a serious person. To study Rabbi Nachman's works, we have to loosen up our minds a little bit. Right? We love Peshat. We love the straightforward meaning of the text. We love it. It's great. It's an important part of how maybe the basis. But Peshat, in Jewish history, in Jewish learning, Jewish connection with Torah, was not enough. And there's a level of Midrash. Midrash is a very creative way of taking Torah texts which might have fallen into disuse, might have become completely irrelevant, and making them completely relevant. And that's what the greatness, the creative genius of our Chachamim, to be able to revive dead letters and make them relevant. Be it Korbanot, be it 100 different things. You see, that's the beauty of Midrash. And there's a language to Midrash. It's kind of like when you read a poem and the poet uses a metaphor and uses something when you're not going to go and say, but that's not exactly the same thing. You're not. You're going to enjoy the metaphor of the poem. I'm trying to quote some memory, some poetry, but you can all think of things. Whether to suffer the slings and arrows of an outrageous fortune, or by opposing end them. Right? To be or not to be, that's the question. Whether to suffer the slings and arrows of an outrageous fortune. Well, as an outrageous fortune, slings and arrows, you're not going to go, hey, Shakespeare, that's not exactly correct, Outrageous fortune is not slings and arrows. You're never going to do that, because you're going to say, okay, this is poetic. You have to flex some mental muscles a little bit and let them be loose and get some flexibility in them. And for Pshat people, it's not always so easy. And it took me a lot of years to get out of the Pshat alone mentality. And that's in Midrash. When you get to Rabbi Nachman, you got to jump on a trampoline, because his Midrash is so creative. It's so creative, so ingenious. Now, we'll give you a pasuk that a lot of this Torah that we're going to learn is based on this pasuk. Okay? The pasuk is in Teilim Lamed Zayin, Perek Yud. There are handouts over here, so you can take them. Now, whenever we learn Midrash, and many people I wish more people would learn Midrash this way. Whenever Midrash is quoting a pasuk, the first level we have to get solid is what is the Peshat. Let's get grounded on that first. And then when we look at the Midrash, we can appreciate the creativity. And we look at Rabbi Nachman, we appreciate the creativity exponentially. In Teilim Lamed Zayin, author of the Navi who's writing the Tehillim. So I'm reading, let's say, from Lamed Zayin Zayin. Dom l'Adonai v'itcholelo al titchar v'matzliach darko v'ish oseh mezimot. Be quiet, wait for Hashem, and don't worry about the person who's very successful and the person who's scheming and succeeding. Heref me'af v'azov hema. Put aside your anger and put aside your fury and abandon your fury. Al tiqar ach le'areach. Don't try to compete with him and to bring yourself down to become bad. Ki nere'im yikaretum. Because the evil people will be cut off. The kovei Adonai hema yirishu aretz. And those who hope for Hashem, they will be the ones who will inherit the earth. And now here's the pasuk that he's going to do. You ready? Ve'od me'at ve'en rasha. In just a little bit of time, ve'od me'at ve'en rasha. There won't be any more evil people. Ve'hitponanta al mekomo. And you'll see him, you look at his place, poof, ve'enenu. Okay? Va'anavim yishu aretz. And the meek shall inherit the earth. Okay? The humble shall inherit the earth. V'yid'annegu al rov shalom. And they will rejoice, or they will take pleasure in the harmony and peace that exists. That's the pasuk that's following. This is the pshat level of the pasuk. Ve'od me'at ve'en rasha. Od me'at means, and just a little. I'm adding just a little. Brackets, right? Just a little bit of time. Ve'en rasha. And there's no evil person. Ve'hitponanta al mekomo. You will look at his place. He's not there. Ve'enen. It's like, poof, he's gone. Okay? Is the pshat level very solid with us now? This mizmor? It's worth reading the whole mizmor. I'm not going to do it tonight. Homework. It's going to be on the final. I'll read the whole line. Read the whole line. Okay. Let's open up with Rabbi Nacham. Da. Ki tzarich ladun et kol adam lekav zechut. We have to judge every person through the cup or the scale of merits. Because the scale has two plates on it, right? And those two plate scales, we have to push everyone to the scale of merit. Va'afilu mishu rasha gamur. And even if the person is an absolute, total evil person, rasha, tzarich lechapes v'limtso bo eize me'atov. We have to search and find within him eize me'at, a little tov. Shebe'oto ami'at eino rasha. And that little bit of good, he is not an evil person. V'al yedei zeh shemotze bo me'at tov. And when you find that one spot of good in him, be'dan oto lekaf zchut, and you take that one spot and you say, that spot is good, so I'm going to put him, that spot, a little tiny spot of the whole person, I'm going to put that in the good part. Al yedei zeh ma'aleh oto be'emet lekaf zchut. And that's how you, in truth, bring him over to be completely in kaf zchut. V'yuchal lahashivo b'tshuva. And you can have him return and make repentance. V'zeh bechinat, and here's our pasuk. Ve'od me'at ve'en rasha v'yitponanta al mekomo ve'enim. In just a little, now, what's the creative jump he's making? In just a little, not
The good that you see in him.
right, in a little bit of him, a little bit, not a bit of time, a little bit of him, ve'od me'at ve'en rasha. And now, in that place, he's not a rasha. V'yitponanta al mekomo ve'enim. Hainu she'apasuk mazhir ladun et hakol lekaf zechut. The pasuk is telling us to take every person and put him to the side of merit. ואף על פי שאתה רואה שהוא רשע גמור, and even though you see him as a Rasha Gamur, look at the subtle change. Rabbi Nacham first says, he is Rasha Gamur. Now, the rest says, even though you see him as a Rasha Gamur. Very subtle, but he's already getting us to think, oh, that's the way I see him. Now let me broaden my thinking a little bit. Let me find in that Rasha Gamur one little dot, one little iota of goodness. אף על פי כן צריך אתה לחפש ולבקש למצוא בו מעט טוב. You have to find that little spot of goodness. ששם אינו רשע. And in that spot, he's not a רשע. וזהו בעוד מעט ואין רשע. And this is what it means when it says just in a little bit that he's not evil. And there's no evil. שצריך אתה לבקש בו עוד מעט טוב שיש בו עדיין. That you have to find a little part of good that he still has. Shisham in Rasha, because in that part he's not Rasha. Ki אף על פי שהוא רשע, even though he is a Rasha, איך אפשר שאין בו מעט טוב עדיין? How can it be that he doesn't have one good thing that he did? כי איך אפשר שלא עשה איזה מצווה או דבר טוב מימיו? Probably talking about a Jew, right? How can it be that he didn't do one good thing in his whole life? One mitzvah? ועל ידי זה שאתה מוצא בו עוד מעט טוב ששם אינו רשע, and by that you find one little place that he is not a rasha, ואתה דן אותו לכף זכות, and you judge him to by finding that little piece, that's how you get to, you look at his place and he's not there. What does that mean? When you start to look at his place and his level, he's not in the same place he was earlier. When by finding that one spot of good, some good point, ודנים אותו לכף זכות, על ידי זה מוציאים אותו באמת מכף חובה לכף זכות. וזהו התבוננת על מקומו ואיננו. I'll wrap up this section. You move him. One little spot. That spot moved him from where he was to where he is now. You moved him not in reality, but in your perception of him. Because for every person, there is some good that he did. And when we focus on that good, then we relate to him differently. And that relating to that person differently is going to, in effect, move them, impact them. So.
No, I was going to ask that. It was the beginning is the perception. The perception of seeing him as an evil person, and now the perception is that he's good because you're going to concentrate on that one thing. But it's only if you have a relationship with this person that he will change. Your perception can change, but he won't move unless there is that relationship between the two.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's absolutely necessary. And we're talking about a society. We're talking about people that are not talking about Rasha Gamur like coming from Hamas or something like that. We're talking about the people in our society that we have with great. Sometimes there are people. It happens. At times in our lives we have people that we feel strong feelings of anger towards, or maybe even hatred. I don't know, maybe there's something popping up. I don't know. When I lived in Deal, when I was working at Tawil, and I prayed in Deal synagogue, and there were people in Deal synagogue that every time I prayed in Nacham, Shabbat, I'll go there for Shabbat with my father, otherwise I'd pray in Deal. But for Shabbat I would go with my father to Deal synagogue. And there were groups of people that would get up, make a loud protest of the fact that I was praying in that minyan. And they would say all types of names to me, and some people that would make another minyan because I was there. And amongst those people was a person that I had taught, and he was lived by me for a month or two in Israel, many years before. And I went over to that person to shake his hand and say Shabbat Shalom to him afterwards. And he said, I'm not allowed to touch you. I can't even say Shabbat Shalom to you. And he said other things about me. I wasn't yet. I didn't know this Torah yet. I didn't have this Torah yet, and I have to say that it hurt me a lot. And I was angry. I was angry. Of course, I didn't respond to the people that were making a hubbub. I told my father. My father wanted to get angry and show the anger. I said, make believe, Dad, make believe they're speaking in another language. I'm not referring to it. We're here to pray. And that's it. I'm not going to be pulled into the mudburn. And there are ways that are more tactful and subtle than other ways. So I used that as a way of learning myself. And then I said, I want to try to be a person that can say whatever he wants, but do it in a way that doesn't provoke this type of response. I don't know if I got there yet, but this is part of the work that I did from that angle. So I tried to find the Nekudat Tova in them. I didn't know, as I said, I didn't know this yet, but there are, and so that's my first reaction. These people are Rashayim. These people are evil. They're bad. Right? That was not a good place to be. That was a very bad place for me to be in. The story of David HaMelech. When Avshalom,
Wi-Fi.
when David HaMelech's son, Avshalom, rebelled against him and forced him to flee the city. Everyone remember the story? Anyone remember the story of Avshalom? Right? Who needs a refresher? Okay. David HaMelech's son, as punishment for having a son that rebelled against him, was coming to take over the city, and David asked, what should he do? Should he fight or leave? His advisor told him to leave, and as he's leaving, there's a person standing on the mountain, he's like in a valley, kicking dirt at him, and he says, it was Shimon ben Gera, ish damim, ish Belial, get out of here, you bloodthirsty lowlife. Right? Ish damim, bloodthirsty or bloody person. Ish Belial, leave. Get out of here. He's kicking dirt. And then David's right-hand man, Yoav, one of the Ben Suruyah, I don't think it's Yoav, I think it's Yoav's brother, Shai maybe, I'm forgetting the name. Emily, do you remember the name? I forget the name. Yoav, no, I think it's his brother. It's Yoav. He tells him, let me go and remove that dog's head from his body. So David tells him, and this is something that also helped me through that period, I knew that at that time. You think he's just cursing by himself? That he's not cursing him because God told him to curse? You think there's no element of rightness in this curse? Maybe I deserve to curse. So what I said to myself when that whole thing happened, I said, maybe, maybe there's some part of what I did that's I'm culpable in what happened. And maybe they're right to some degree. And this is it helped me work on myself and understand how we can say everything we want, not hold back that, but a tactful way of saying it. I'm not looking for provocation. Sometimes when we're younger, we look for Shagar. So we don't like to say we hate, but sometimes we do. We don't like to say we're very angry at someone to the point of not talking to them ever, but sometimes we don't. And there's sometimes hatred. It's hard, very hard. I don't know if anyone's familiar with people like this or families like this, but there are families in the community where people don't talk to one another. we're not giving us the way to get out of that. The way to get out of it is to find Nikudat Tova. To find Nikudat Tova. David.
It seems to be that he's demanding even more than that, because when he explains the second part of the pasuk, he says, "Ad sheyashu b'tshuva al yedei zeh." Zehu, in other words, the teshuvah, I don't think is the person's. In other words, it's the judge's. It's mine. If I'm the person that thinks badly of this person, this rasha, you're supposed to bring him back into teshuvah. And that's the second part of the pasuk. Al yedei shemutzev rasha od me'atov. In other words, he's telling you, it's not just one nikudah. One nikudah is just the start of it. But then you should continue to search for other good points in this person until such time, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, until such time as you get him to teshuvah. In other words, he is no longer a rasha in your eyes. He is actually, he really is no longer a rasha in your eyes at all.
Because you found, once you find one
and another, you're going to load it up on the zechut side of the scale, and then
you connect it
admit
up.
you have that ganino tolekat zechut.
Yeah. I agree with that reading, and we'll see how it's borne out later on. And I want to replay the song that I started the class with. We started at 8:34, I think, or 4 minutes late. But I want to replay the song that I started. This is the song that takes this Torah, and it's a popular Israeli song written by and sung by Shuli Rand, the actor in Ushpizin. Some of you have seen the movie. And how do I do this? This? Oh, one second. I can do this. Okay. One second. Play. Okay. The picture, by the way, on the cover you see a picture of a Shuli Rand in full Breslov regalia diving into a pool. You have it? You have the CD. I'm not going to analyze the whole song tonight, but I sing the refrain to myself. The refrain's coming up soon. He doesn't have a nice voice, but definitely a unique voice. This is another popular Israeli singer, Ehud Bana. I sing the refrain to myself that I need to strengthen this ability to find Nekudat Tova, or Nekudat Tova, as David just explained.
תמיד ידעת למצוא בי עוד קצת אור שממני נעלם. נקודה טובה ועוד נקודה טובה ועוד מעט מהרשע התבוננת למקומו
Okay. Nekuda tova ve'od nekuda tova. One good point, another good point. Ve'od na'afein rasha. And just in that little spot, he's not a rasha, and he's not there. You look for his place, and he's gone. Yes, Steve.
And I guess is it interactive, or is this purely our perception, either individually or as society, of someone, where it was, oh, that's a Russia. Oh, wait, oh no, you know what? He did this good deed, and then he did that good deed, and then he did that good deed. Is it just a way of looking at someone, or is it interactive, where you're going to go to the person and bring them to Teshuvah and say, oh, you know, you did this thing, and you're. In other words, is this really, we're looking at someone and saying, this is how you should look at people, or is it something, look at people and then interact with them and then bring them to Teshuvah?
I think that David and I had a little bit of a difference of opinion here, and I like David's better, but I was seeing it much more interactive, and you won't despair of the person, and you'll have contact with them, and through that contact, and this, I think, but David was saying something else, right? David was saying, you're going to, and even without even talking to him, it's going to be your perception will change, right? David, that's
The
correct. That's what I'm
perception
saying.
is disarming to the person without even speaking.
Not disarming. The other person doesn't
Or
even
you
know what
look
you're
at
going
it.
through.
Right.
But you have just moved him over in your mind. You have moved him over, and then you found the redeeming points, right? One redeeming point, another redeeming point, and then finally that person is no longer a shot in your mind.
Are you saying you rationalize the wrong that he did to you, that was mistaken? You rationalize away what he did? That really injured you. You just rationalize it away?
I'm not saying that it's a rationalization. It's more of looking at the other parts of them, right?
You have to let go of
This
that.
person,
You
I
have to let go.
have a person still in the community that every time I walk by he spits, and the person with all the time. I don't know.
No, but he's saying it's a scale. So
Now-
it's not that you're forgiving that. You're saying when I evaluate this
Now,
person,
I try to.
You gotta keep
The bad is still there, right?
Until it evaporates.
But then I
but
start
not that bad part. You're looking. Is there
I'm
another
finding
part
other
that's good?
parts.
So
That's
he's
what
very good to his mother.
I'm finding
He's good to
other
his
parts.
grandmother.
I'm finding other parts
He
of that
does select.
person
Right.
that where he's good. Where he's good, and I'm finding more and more parts such that the good overwhelms the bad points to the point where you don't see it anymore. They're still there, and you're not rationalizing away what he did. Right? The people who that person didn't shake my hand and say, by the way, years later he apologized. Years later he came over to me and said, I was wrong, and Shabbat Shalom. It was Tuesday, but
It was Avishai, Rabbi.
What's that?
It was Avishai.
Avishai? Yeah.
His brother.
So, not saying to rationalize with their points, but find other points in his life where it's good.
It's a good question. You know, so what do? It sounds like you're
I don't hate
asking.
it, so you have to
It
say
sounds
that.
like what you're asking is, what is the right thing to do with the hurt?
Yes.
And, you know, I don't know, you certainly are not saying to erase it, but it is a good question. What do we do with that?
Well,
And what do we do
You have to let go.
with the wrong?
well, you know, if
I don't know the answer.
well, let's think through this a little bit, okay? I want to take this question, and I'm not saying to rationalize away the hurt. But let's now imagine that there's a person that behaves in this way to me, and I have hatred towards him. And I'm very angry, and I hate him. He ruined my life, let's say. And then I go through the process of finding the good points, one after another. And I find a lot of good points in the person, but he still ruined my life. Not leaving that, they're still there. When I've gone through the process of finding redeeming points, qualities of the person, and then I approach the person with what he did to me, it's going to be from a very different place than if I just approach him outright and say, you ruined my life. I hate you, you ruined my life. It's going to be, well, I have a much more nuanced view of the person now. I see that he's three-dimensional. He's not just the evil Haman, or the evil person that ruined my life. No, there's this and this, that. And part of the way he related to me was very damaging. He say, you know, several years ago he did X, Y, and Z to me, and I see my culpability, and I see why that happened, what I did to make that happen. It still hurts me what you did. I see you're a good person, and I see you have points A, B, C, and D that are so good. How could you do this to me? And I do take some responsibility. What's my portion in what happened? I take responsibility, but I still want to know. And I see, you're such a good, so many good things. How could you do this to me? Well, you know, it sets a dialogue, and the possibility of redeeming that relationship makes it much more likely. It's not magic and not necessarily going to happen. So I'm not saying to ignore those parts. I'm saying deal with the bad that happened after we find the good points, after we find our own responsibility, take responsibility for our part in these things, and then we can approach the person in a completely different place. Okay, Fred and Elliot?
More or less. Like it, I mean, you can see
Going
it
to quote
two
her
ways.
anyway.
What's that?
I was going to quote her anyway.
It seems, I mean, the difference between you and David is, I think, it sounds like you're healing yourself by perceiving somebody who's hurt you or an evil person, to look at them and perceive them as being good, and finding is more of a healing of yourself. Or you could say that your responsibility is to help them become a better person, but I guess it could be seen the other way as well, that you're really healing yourself because this is really an exercise within you.
Mm-hmm.
The other person, like you said, has absolutely no idea what you're doing, what emotional gymnastics you're doing. And I agree. I think that harboring hate is very, very destructive.
Self-destructive.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah, right, and we try to expand it a little bit more to take into account Eli's very good question of, well, what do you do with the pain? What do you do with the hurt? Okay. Elliot?
My wife always told me that anger is not a productive emotion.
And did you learn it?
But
I didn't exactly say that. I said it reminds you that something happened that shouldn't have happened. It reminds you that somebody or something did something to you that wasn't proper, and that you should react to it. It spurs anger. Anger is an emotion that we can't get away from. It's a human emotion.
Well, how do we make anger into a productive thing?
sometimes you have, if I could just
continue.
go back.
Yes.
It seems that there's this divide. I think both are happening. Number one, if you view people in this fashion, then you transform yourself into a positive person. Negativity really doesn't send you anywhere, and it destroys you. I mean, I should be preaching. I preach this to myself every night. Don't get me wrong, and I still come back the next morning and have to do it the next night again. But so that's as far as yourself is concerned, it's the activity of transforming yourself into this person that is always focusing on positive people and not getting drawn down by the negativity. So that's the dynamics automatically turn the other way, and you have a possibility of changing the relationship, or at least the potential of change is so great that you see it almost immediately. Like if you put a smile onto it, and that other person senses that
What do you mean by
connection.
flip it? I'm trying to understand. If you flip it, that's a phrase you use. I'm not sure I understood what that process is of flipping it. What do you mean by that?
To flip the negativity or the anger into positivity and
Just by
possible for reconciliation and resolution and possibilities of teshuvah between each other, having more of someone senses that you're compassionate even when they do something terrible to you. But is this safely? I don't know.
Saintly in the sense that impossible to do, or saintly?
It's very
Something-
difficult
something-
to
yeah.
take the slings and arrows and not be wounded, and that it's very hard sometimes to
Turn
bounce
that
back.
around.
To bounce back.
Okay,
But it does
I think
work.
what Rabbi Nacham is aware that it's hard to do, and I think why he starts off saying, find the one good point. Now, the next section, as we have a couple more sections here, and Yosef, you wanted to say something right after Yosef, or over the next section? Go ahead.
That's not really well.
I'm sure it is.
Sometimes anger could be positive. You don't have to be too forgiving, and in the end, you're not acknowledging the hurt that's being done.
I agree.
Sometimes anger, some people you should be angry.
First of all, anger, when we feel anger, and I'm differentiating between feeling anger and expressing anger. Okay? It's another person. But when someone gets our ire up and we feel angry,
What they wronged you.
we know that the person has touched a chord. Something that's a core value to you, something that's very important to you, has just been tweened, whatever, twanged. It's banging up in there, right? Now sometimes we don't even know what that chord is. We just know we're angry, and we start to analyze this. This anger helps me identify what's so important to me that's got me angry, and I try to use anger as a means of self-analysis, of understanding myself, before I can even speak to the other person. Now, I'm differentiating between feeling the emotion of anger and expressing that emotion, because a lot of times as adults we can feel anger and know how to rein that in, not express it. Right? Or we can express it in other ways that's not destructive to the relationship. But anger, and sometimes it's important to express anger, especially in educating children. If they do something really bad, really dangerous, they can hurt themselves. You can't take it, with equanimity. They run into the street and that. So this upsets you. The Rambam says, show anger only when you're not angry. Rambam in show anger when you're not angry. Don't show it when you're angry, because then you might overdo it. So you're angry? Okay. Put a lid on it, understand and analyze that. Now you want to be angry, you want to show anger as an educational tool, at times it's necessary. Then do it as a control, with the control. Okay, so yes, sometimes it's important, Rambam agrees with that, but used in the right way, used with complete control. Now, when I was a first year rabbi at Torah, with young Bet Torah, this happened when I was about 1988. I was 28 years old. Right? After the first year, it was a hard year. I was also teaching a little bit, but also young Bet Torah was a hard year. And I don't know if, I think that many people have this, like a very strong self-criticism. Very strong, high standards. We have high standards for ourselves, and we don't reach those standards. We feel lousy about ourselves. Right? We feel, that was terrible. And it came to the point that my wife said, "You're going to go to a therapist." I said, "No, I don't need a therapist." She said, "No, you're going to a therapist. I already made an appointment for you." What? Yeah, I already paid for it. And I went to a therapist, and 8 sessions, $200 a session. And had I read Rabbi Nacham, I could have saved myself about $60. I'll give you the whole sentence, the whole 8 sessions in one sentence after we read them. וכן צריך האדם ליצור גם בעצמו. You have to find also in yourself the good points. כי זה ידוע שצריך האדם להיזהר מאוד. The person has to be very careful. להיות בשמחה תמיד. To be always in a state of happiness. להרחיק העצבות מאוד מאוד. and to chase away the sadness very much, to distance, put the sadness at a distance. ואפילו כשמתחיל להסתכל בעצמו ורואה שאין בו שום טוב, and even when you start to look at yourself and you say about yourself, there was nothing good. That class that I gave was lousy. What a terrible class. What a terrible dirasha. Boy. How much I prepared, how much I thought about, and how much I forgot to give. Oh, that was so bad. I'm quoting myself here from a long time ago, not last week. From more specifically, when the first year, my first year as a rabbi, here I have this obligation to bring Torah, to teach. I prepared so much, and it didn't come out perfect. It was lousy. And I focused on all the mistakes that I made in the speech and the dirasha, and it was self-destructive. And even if the person sees and he starts to look at himself and he says there's not even one good thing about him, and he's full of sin, full of mistakes, full of imperfections. ורוצה הבעל דבר להפילו על ידי זה בעצבות ומראה שחורה. The בעל דבר is a euphemistic term for the Satan, or the Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse. And the בעל דבר wants to, with that, bring him down into depression and into melancholy. חס ושלום. אף על פי כן אסור לו ליפול מזה. Rabbi Nacham, I think, is being autobiographical. He's telling you about himself. This is what he felt, what he feels, and he's giving us the way to get out of this situation. רק צריך לחפש ולמצוא בעצמו איזה מעט טוב. Find in yourself some small bit of good. כי איך אפשר שלא עשה מימיו איזה מצווה או דבר טוב? Because how could it be that he didn't do in his life some mitzvah or something good? How could it be that the whole class was bad and the whole lecture was not good? How could that be? Or the whole dirasha was wrong? ואז כשמתחיל להסתכל באותו הדבר הטוב, and when he starts to look at that good point, and even at that good point he sees that good point was not completely good. והוא רואה שהוא גם כן מלא פצעים ואין בו מתום. He sees that this good point has also its problems. Even in that good point, it's not perfect. By the way, this doesn't occur in the first section. He's talking about others. In the good point for himself, he sees even that one good point is flawed. He sees the good thing that he tried to do. He sees that it's also filled with a lot of flaws, a lot of problems. With all that, but even with all that, even though it's flawed, there's still some little, even smaller piece of good, that part aspect of good that was in that action. Even though, no matter what, there still is, there's some good aspect of what he did. He has to find and search and investigate and find this little good in him, in order to revive himself, to be in a state of happiness. And here's David's point. Oh, not yet. David's point coming up. He moves himself from Kaf Chova to Kaf Sefut. I'm skipping a little bit. כמו שצריכים לדון לאחרים, לקו זכות, אפילו את הרשעים, למצוא בהם איזה נקודת טובות, just like we have to find good points in other people, and then we move them to קו זכות, we also find in ourselves we're required to find in ourselves good points and move ourselves from kaf chovat to kaf sechut, from being guilty to being meritorious. And that's the way he revives himself. And when you find one good thing, you look for another one, and then you find that there's a lot of good. And even if those good points had some aspects of bad in them, they're still good points. You find in yourself also. Many years ago when I read this, after a couple of times of reading it, I asked myself a question. Why does he start with the other person and then move to the self? Why does he first find the good in the other person and then move to the self? I think that Rabbi Nacham was a very self-critical and had a high standard for himself. And finding the good in the other person was just easier. Just easier. Because when another person does something, we don't know the inside of what he was doing. We don't know the deep part. He did a mitzvah. You saw him helping a person. You saw him, giving tzedakah. That we didn't start to analyze. But in ourselves, we're intelligent people, and we can't fool ourselves. We know that when we did the good thing and we told someone about it, there was an ego involved in there. We know how to get. We're not going to trick ourselves. So we're much harder on ourselves sometimes than on other people. So what did I come out with the therapist? Bet Torah. It wasn't the therapist from Bet Torah. It's not necessarily Bet Torah. It has nothing to do with, it could have been any place. It was something in me. One simple line. Great hitters. Great baseball hitters. If they only hit a third of the time, they have a great batting average. Right? 333. It's wonderful.
Out of what?
One
I mean, 1,000.
Out of 1,000, yeah. Batting 1,000 means he gets to hit every time he's up. Or a walk.
So 333 is the third.
Third.
Rabbi, they make out 2 out of 3 times.
They make out. They struck out. They get out 2 out of 3 times. And
They're great.
So my therapist told me to follow. We came together. It took a while. And of course, saying it is very easy, and I can tell you that it's internalizing it and living it. So my wife doesn't agree with this. Well, I'm saying no, she doesn't agree with this. She didn't come tonight.
That's why she didn't come
No.
tonight?
Very fun. We have a long day today. But she doesn't agree with this. But I'll tell you anyway what I think. And what we arrived at. Says, you mean you expect, my therapist at one point told me, you mean you expect from yourself, every time you come up at bat to give a lecture, to give a dirasha, or to read the Torah, whatever you do, you expect a home run every single time? I said,
You want to get on base.
I said, yeah, I do. And then we came to the thing, no, that's an unrealistic expectation. Unrealistic expectation. And sometimes you get a double. Sometimes you get a strikeout. But you're still a good hitter. 333. Great. And it reduced, for me, a lot of the pressure on myself. And I was in, depression. I don't know, cynical. I was cynical. I was in a state of melancholy, of sadness, of self-criticism, of unrelenting self-criticism. And by saying, and then he told me to do an exercise. I want you in the next lecture that you give that's lousy, see where was that single that you hit? See where was that home run and where was that strikeout? And see why you struck out and work on that. Find the good. Find the good things in something that's so terrible. You say, I was lousy and I was bad. Okay, find the good thing. And work on improving it. There you have it. Save your 8 sessions, 200 pop. What's the pop? Okay. Morris.
The whole crux of the Hasidut movement to avoid atzarut, to not be said. Where's that coming out in the Hasidut that it's a sin to be said?
It's first of all, it's found in Hasidut that sadness and depression brings about, it's a downward spiral. So when we sing mitzvah gedolel yot besimcha tamid, right? It's a big mitzvah to always be happy. It's a matter of when a person is depressed, other things like a chain reaction of, okay, I'm looking at myself that things are bad, things are terrible. I've created that prism which I view the world, and things, it's going to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Things are going to be. So now I'm already looking at things in a bad way. In Winnie the Pooh, right? There's a character, Eeyore.
He's blue.
So he can take every single situation and find the bad in it. So we will look at the world in a way that's emphasizing and strengthening our perception that the world is bad. If the world is bad, then I don't have to be good. I don't have to, or I despair. So I don't. Well, the world is so terrible. Why should I do a chesed to anyone? Right? And so it's a mitzvah gdolah liot b'simcha. Got a simcha. A lot of creative juices flow. A lot of energy comes. A lot of positive things.
Does that go in affect the way they see God? That He's not as exacting as other people may see God as being, as judgmental.
It brings a view of God that is more of Avinu and less Malkeinu. My father, more my father, less Malkeinu. Although they'll say Avinu Malkeinu, but the Avinu, the present, close by God, is much more emphasized in the Hasidic way. And there's the stories of the shepherd that played the flute on Yom Kippur, and that was his song, or the other person that just said Aleph Bet Gimel Daled Hey all the others. Listen, God, I don't know the prayers. I just know the Aleph Bet. I'll put them together, and you rearrange the letters into the right word. So all these seemingly relying on God. God's helping us and there to help us. And so I wouldn't say it's they don't do away with the punishing God of idea of Shagar Onish, but it's really much more of a focus on God being close by, the one that help, the one you can, if you saw Mishpizin, the one you can say, help me, and right at the moment he gets help. Okay. Noach Weinberg, another Shalom. I don't know. Has anyone? How many have heard of Noach? Okay. So, what a great man. I feel blessed to have known him, to have learned with him. So I remember something I learned with him in 1980. Happiness. Anyone remember it? Happiness is not a happening. Happiness is an obligation. Right? This is his phrase. Sometimes people say, I'll be happy when, or I'll be happy if this happens. I'll be happy if, whatever, I'm able to finish shop. I'll be happy if I'll be able to, to win the lottery. I'll be happy if all my children get married to good people. I'll be happy if, right? I'll be happy when I make all the lights traveling from Park Avenue and 60th to 34th, and I'm able to do it in 2 minutes. I'll be happy, right?
There's no end.
When you do that, you're taking the happiness, your happiness, out of your own hands. And you're putting it in the hands of things you have no control over. Because happiness is an obligation. Well, how can you make an obligation out of a feeling? He says, yeah. He says, I'll show you how to do it. And he then proceeded to show us how to do this obligation. he said, I want you to make a list. I want you to make a list of things that you have that you're happy about. So we all made lists, and he actually did it. And I said, I want you to prioritize that list. I'm happy that I have my mental faculty. I'm happy that I have my family. I'm happy that I can see, I can walk, I can hear, I can talk. I'm happy that I have my brothers and my family and friends. I'm happy that I have the opportunity to learn Torah and teach Torah. Now, prioritize that list. When you're feeling unhappy, focus on that list. And then, when you focus on that list, you can be happy. Now, an interesting article in the Times, we can review July 20th this year.
Pleasure.
Sorry?
Pleasure.
Pleasure. Right. Can a person be happy and unhappy at the same time? It turns out
Mona Lisa.
what's that?
The Mona Lisa.
Okay. I don't know, but Da Vinci tried to capture a very wistful or kind of smile. But happy and unhappy are two different parts of the brain that are reacting. So yes, one could be happy. Yeah, it doesn't erase the sadness. It doesn't erase but it gives us something to focus on in the happy part of our brains. And the upshot of the article was love people, not pleasure. That's a very good article. I recommend it. July 20th of this year. Okay, I want to skip to a point. He said that when we do this, and I'm going to now paraphrase outside. When we do this, it's like making music. When we're able to find the good points in a person, it's like making musical notes. And when we do this with ourselves, and only after we do it, and are found in every one of Am Yisrael, even of the greatest sinners of Am Yisrael, he is the one that can be the Chazan. He is the one that can pray, and be Shaliach Tzibur. He is the one that can be the Shaliach Tzibur, the agent of the public agent, the one who's going to be our messenger, our Shaliach. And he has to be a Shaliach for all the Tzibur. He has to be able to gather together every one of those points of light, of goodness, as that's in every one of the prayers, and all those points of goodness are included in him and in Tzibur, and then he can get up and pray. And this is the Shaliach Tzibur. And he has to be and have this. Anyone ever hear stories of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Miberditchev? Okay, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Miberditchev, also from a Hasidic line. He is known as Sanigoro Shel Am Yisrael, as the advocate for Am Yisrael. One time it was Yom Kippur, and he saw a person smoking a cigarette on Yom Kippur. So, you know the story? So he went over to...
Give it the punchline.
So,
Not yet. Okay.
does everyone know the story?
No.
Okay. So we're smoking on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak loved Am Yisrael. So he went over to this person and he says, "Oh, my brother, maybe you forgot it was Yom Kippur today." "No, I know it's Yom Kippur." "Maybe, my brother, you don't know that." Look at the next Vedah. Vedah sheyesh b'chol dor v'dor ro'eh. And that in every generation there is a shepherd. Hu bechinut Moshe. And that is like Moshe Rabbeinu. Shu ra'aya mehemna. That he is ra'aya mehemna ro'eh ne'eman. Ro'eh ne'eman. V'zeh ro'eh hu oseh mishkan. ודע שתינוקות של בית רבם מקבלים הבל פיהם שאין בו חטא מזה המשכן ועל כן התינוק. Know that in every generation there are those people that are like Moshe Rabbeinu that can find in every person the good. And he goes on to say that the tzaddikim of every generation, this is the act of really being a tzaddik, the ability to find in every person the good. Okay. This is a person, the only person that can be the representative of Tzibur, Shaliach Tzibur, the one that's able to find the good in every person. So now, I speak for myself. You can't say, Tzaddik, and I don't know, maybe other people can. I can't say for myself. But I know that that's an ambition of mine. Here Rabbi Nachman is giving a way to be a tzaddik. Now, to find the good in every person, me'at tov, the point of light, and then try to build that and find more and more, and look and focus on that person. This mental activity can help very much in relations with people, especially with children, our teenage children, maybe, or our older children. Let's find the good, let's focus on that, and it can strengthen the relationship. So in our aspiration to be tzaddikim, let's try to do this. And then when we pray for people. Sometimes a person, I have teachers that work with me in my school, and the person is telling you about a problem child that they have. I ask the question, did you pray for this child yet? Did you pray? This person is so important to you that you pray for them? Do you ask Hashem for guidance for them? Because if you didn't pray for them yet, only after you prayed for them, and you said, Hashem, I don't know what to do here. Please help me direct this person. Then I know that you're really caring about them. If you didn't pray for them yet, pray. So, B'ezrat Hashem, this is one of the works that we can do. This is not the pshat of the pasuk. It's a great message that could be applied in many places. And questions or comments or people who completely disagree with this are encouraged to speak.
I feel, and maybe I'm living in wishful thinking, but my perception is the whole Kiruv movement, both here and in Israel, has made tremendous strides. If we look, and I'm just curious your opinion, if you look at, let's say, that argument in Israel about whether the Haredim should be drafted and leave that as a stopping point and come back through what went on in Gaza to that in the last few weeks, it seems like there's just a tremendous, to me, my perception, there's just a tremendous amount of goodwill, and there's much less finger pointing and he's religious, he's not religious, he's left, he's right. Even within the community, it just seems to me like we're in a time right now where there's much more openness. There seems to be much more, okay, go to one class, just put the tissue in, just do, and less judgments. I don't know, is that, did you see that in Israel before?
Yes, very much so. There's a tremendous feeling of solidarity, a tremendous feeling of putting aside the differences and focusing on the common. I wouldn't equate that with the Kiruv movement, which I have certain problems with. I'm how can I say this? When I come into contact with Chiloni people, I'm not out to change them. Okay, I'm not. So I think a Kiruv movement is a little bit patronizing, a little bit. And I don't want to, in my view, they have their good points about them also. Tremendous. Anyway, Rav Noach was one of the earliest of the Kiruv movement. I loved it. He did so much good work. There's a story, and I'll say the name because he tells the story. Aaron Dam. Anyone know Aaron Dam?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No? You know the story of Noach and Aaron Dam? Aaron, and he tells the story, so I feel okay. So Aaron was a great guy, and he, at some point in life, he started to search and spirituality, and he went to a Muslim sect, Sufi Muslim, mystical Muslim, and he became a Muslim, and he was dancing. He would dance, spin around like the whirling dervish thing. And somehow, somewhere, I don't know the exact story, he got Rav Noach and he met, and maybe it was his sister or his parents had gotten to go to Rav Eshet Torah. And Rav Noach interviewed him on the tape, and he says, do you want to study here? He says, yeah, I want to see what Judaism is about. I think they told him, you studied Islam, why don't you study Judaism? And he came to Rav Noach, and he told him, well, yeah, I'm a Muslim. He goes, yeah, okay, it's okay, you're a Muslim. You could be here and be a Muslim. So he put him in the door, and it was afternoon time, and he tells his roommate, do you mind if I pray? He says, go ahead, pray. But the roommate didn't know. He takes out a rug, Allah. And Aaron describes what happened. He says, Rav Noach says, what's the meaning of life for you? He says, I love to dance. That's all? He says, yeah, that's all. And Aaron was so taken by the Rav Noach's connection with him that slowly but surely Rav Noach accepted him where he was. And Aaron was maybe the person who taped all of Rav Noach's classes. The 48 Ways to Listen, there's hundreds of hours of tapes because of Aaron's work, and I think he's still involved in it. Rav Noach was able to see the good in this Muslim, this Jewish Muslim, and bring him back in. So that, Kiruv in that way, yeah, it's wonderful. Kiruv in the way was, I'm going to, make you, when it's like missionize you, I don't like that so much, but bringing making things available for people to put on tefillin, things like that. Beautiful. But without forcing. But what's happening now in Israel, there's a tremendous thirst. Shuli Gans was, I gave the background, the biography a little bit earlier, was not a religious person, he was Chuvah, but he was known in the secular world, in the popular culture world of Israel. And that's why his music has such an effect on people. And this is Rabbi Nacham's idea of finding the good points. There's a lot more solidarity now, a lot more openness, a lot less anti. I moved out of Alon Shvut. I moved 4.5 years ago. As a response to what happened in Gush Katif. I do want to blame the left and Sharon and things. For me, I don't like blaming other people. I like seeing where am I culpable. I decided, where am I at fault? I live in a very homogeneous town. My friends think the same, almost the same as me. Now the differences are on a very narrow part of the spectrum. I have to go out of Alon Shvut, out of Gush Etzion. I need to be in regular Israel. And I moved up north, and I moved to Tivon. And I came into contact with, and not with the idea I'm going to teach them. No, I'm just going to be together with them. I don't know if I told the story. If I did, correct. So I joined a band. I played saxophone. I joined the band, and the band had a singer, Sharon. Did I tell the story? Sharon is a very left-winger, politically anti-religious person. Shaven head. He's a dermatologist, one of the top dermatologists in his day job. But and we get together, and there I'm with this long beard and a big kippah. That's when I have a beard. And Sharon tells me, "You want to go out for a beer together?" Yeah, why not? We start talking, and he starts, talking against religious people. I say, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way, but if you're an exception, you're an exception. I say, Sharon, I might be an exception, but there are a lot of exceptions just like me. In fact, most of the exceptions are like me. He said, okay, I read about the religious people in the newspaper. I said, yeah. months go by. He says, Rafael, my daughter's sick. Would you pray for her? I said, Shalom. Of course I'll pray for her, but you pray yourself. You know, if you feel that you can pray yourself. But I can pray. God will listen to me. And he will suffer counting all the sins that he did A, B, C, D. So you ever do something good for someone? It was really good with you. I do good for people. Sometimes I cheat people. I don't charge them because they can't afford to pay. And their insurance doesn't cover, but I do it anyway. That's it. Do you do anything else good? And he starts telling me some of the good things. Take that and pray. You're good. This is shut up months before. Now I didn't have this goal. I didn't come out with this goal. And he affected me also. Changed my case in there. The politics is very hard in Israel. Everyone's very opinionated, but the exactly out the sax, the thing, the tenor saxophonist is a reservist in the Air Force, general in the Air Force, lieutenant general in the Air Force, and he is very right wing, and he's also not religious. So it's so we have interesting discussion. No, he impacted me a lot in other ways. So it's being more involved in Israeli culture, understanding the left in Israel. You know, he's very anti-settler. You know, so yeah, Shalom, I'm a settler. Because you're the exception. But it's not about trying to. I didn't go into the religion trying to change anything. I was wanted to be authentic. The act. It's happening. Once we allow for, and the Shilonim, I know how to do it. The Chilonim don't even like that term anymore. I was, okay, we have to end, but there's a lot of great